Yes, my name is Larry King. We can get the jokes out of the way right now and just go ahead and say them in your head. You know, I did not retire, and I only bring the suspenders out in front of the TV cameras. So that's good. So I want to talk to you today about mobile and talk a little bit about the web specifically, not so much about apps, but we want to talk about mobile and the web space because we really want to manage the chaos that's really coming. And the chaos is the sheer number of devices and diversity of devices that are coming out there. And every day we're asked as web designers and user experience people to design for these and how we manage making our websites accessible on all these different devices. So we're going to talk a little bit about some ways we can future-proof that design in websites and in the mobile space as well. So if you'd like to follow along, join the conversation. We tweet from ICF Health and during the event. And so I think Ronnie Ostby, our PR person, is tweeting from there. And you can look at all of our other social stuff since that's the big thing right now. But first of all, I want to tell you a little story about a yo-yo. So when ICF does conferences like this, so we come here and we put up a booth, and there's the ultimate thing that we have to say, what is going to be our swag for the conference? This is a big deal, so we have to make these decisions, you know, really important decisions. So we decided that it was going to be the yo-yo. So we were in a meeting last week, and Ronnie Ostby, our PR person, asked me, you know, is there any way you can just incorporate the yo-yo into your presentation somehow? And I was like, okay. And she's like, I got a great idea. Why don't you learn a yo-yo trick? Okay, I haven't touched a yo-yo since I was 8 years old, but I was up to the challenge. So on Sunday, just this past Sunday, I went to the store and I got myself a yo-yo. And I decided that even though I had not touched a yo-yo since I was 8, I learned a couple of tricks and I got pretty good at it. And so now, well, not that good. So now I'm going to perform the first annual Digital Health Extravaganza yo-yo trick. So here we go. Drum roll, please. Somebody got the drum roll ready, right? Okay. Can you teach an old dog new tricks? We'll see. Okay. Now, drum roll, please. Ready? All right, here we go. Here we go. Thank you. So, much like I had to learn a new trick very quickly for this conference, in 4 days as a matter of fact, I think that if you are in charge of the web strategy of your web, that you're going to have to learn some new tricks as well, and we're going to talk a little bit about those. And so why do we need to learn these new tricks? Well, because we're quickly moving into, and I'd say we're not even quickly moving into it, we are in the post-PC era. You know, it started with the iPhone in 2007, then Android started to drink Apple's milkshake, and then just this past fall, Amazon decided to get into the party as well. And so we have all these different mobile devices. And they're all different. They're different sizes, they're different shapes, different orientations. We can hold them portrait, we can hold them landscape, we can hold them in our hand. You know, so, you know, how do we deal with this stuff? So how fast is all this really changing? And so Morgan Stanley came out with a study in December 2009 and said that, well, we think that the desktop and notebook PCs are going to be overshadowed by smartphones and tablets by 2012. And so what ended up happening was, actually, that was in December 2009 when that report came out. It actually happened that next year, 2 years earlier. The number of devices that are being shipped is really, really accelerating. In fact, it's accelerating so fast, if you look at the left-hand side, we see that was the growth of the desktop in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. We saw that, you know, steep growth at the very beginning and kind of leveled off, and then we had the PC and Mac kind of hovering there for a while, and then boom, mobile hits, and then we're up that hockey stick again, except it started a lot higher this time than it did at the very beginning. It's got this huge trajectory of growth of the number of devices that are being shipped. Mobile devices are actually going to outnumber the number of humans this year. This is something that Cisco just said on Monday of this week. Mobile devices will outnumber humans in 2012. That's just the devices itself. What about the web? What about the use of the web as compared to how we've used the web in the desktop? And again, Morgan Stanley came out with a study, and they have shown that the mobile web is actually growing 8 times faster than the desktop web did. So that's the first 11 quarters of AOL and Netscape, and the first 11 quarters of the iPhone plus iPod Touch plus Japan's mobile web. So it's growing really, really fast. I can't emphasize enough that And we all know this, but this is just stuff that we need to take to heart because it's really, really important that mobile is really going to surpass desktop usage very, very soon. So what does that say about us? Well, it says we really love our mobile devices, don't we? We love them. We're very intimate with them. They're in our pockets. We take them with us. We even do different types of searches on a mobile than we would do in a desktop, much more intimate things we talk about. When we first started thinking about mobile, we thought, well, the context of use is different than desktop. And so we have to make sure we have to divide specifically for that new context of use. But we look at it, the context of use is different, but it's just extended. The mobile devices doesn't give us less things we can do, it gives us more things we can do. We have GPS, we have location, we have orientation, gyroscopes, we have these cameras and videos, cameras built into it, and it's with us all the time. So for mobile, we have to think about not giving less. We actually have to think about giving more because users are expecting more. And they're expecting that experience to be consistent across all the devices they use because typically now people have a phone and then maybe they have a tablet and a desktop. And they're continually going in between the three different, those three different devices and expecting the same content, the same information. And so as web designers, we have to ask ourselves, how do we deal with this? What's the next big thing going to be? Now it's phones and tablets and desktops. What the next big thing is? Is it going to be web TV? Google software is going to be on half the TVs sold by the summer of this year. Is it TV? Is it going to be the web in your car? Is it going to be the web on your wall? I'm really waiting for this one. This is going to be awesome. I want a screen the size of my wall. But what happens when that's somebody has a browser on their wall? Browser on your toaster. Where does it stop? So how do we design for devices that we haven't even thought about yet? How do we make sure that our content is accessible now? When mobile came out, it was like, and we created a separate mobile site. And then when the iPad came out 2 years ago, people were like, okay, we need an iPad app now. We got to have something for the iPad. Well, what's the next big thing going to be? We can't just keep chasing all of these new devices that come out. So what do we do? How can we make sure that we have similar experiences, similar content, similar functionality across all the different devices and still be able to future-proof that design and content for devices that come down the road? One of the techniques that we have discovered for this is a thing called responsive web design. What responsive web design is, it's really an approach that suggests that design and development should respond to the user's behavior and environment based upon their screen size and the platform and the orientation of that device. So for the longest time, we've made the web a lot like print. Clickable print and somewhat interactive print, but really a static layout of what print was. And the web was never meant to be that. The web was meant to be this platform that's agnostic to content, that content could be displayed anywhere, no matter whatever device is accessing it. We like to use this responsive web design because this allows us to design one website with one set of code that is responsive to whatever screen size that you may be using. What is responsive design? Well, it's really three basic things. The first thing is it's about flexible grids. We want to make sure that the sites that we have are flexible and they move with whatever device we have. In fact, if we look at the Boston Globe here, we can see, as we move that browser window in and out, we can see that the grid is changing sizes. It's a flexible grid. And if you look at the video on the side there, even the media is changing sizes. No matter what the width size of the screen that we're looking at, we can make sure that we have a layout that actually works with that. Flexible grids and flexible media is two part of it, but what happens if that width gets even farther down? We can't display 3 columns on something that's very, very narrow. The third part of thing in CSS3, which is cascading style sheets, that is called media queries, and we can detect the width of the screen based on these media queries and set up a breakpoint that says, hey, if this screen is only 340 pixels wide, we serve up this layout. Or if it's wider than that, then we can maybe serve out the 2-column layout. Or if it's on a big screen, we can serve a layout that works with a big screen. So those 3 things are really what we're talking about, and it's because of modern browser technology that we can do these kind of things. HTML5, CSS3 allows us to do a lot of this stuff, and luckily all the new devices that are coming out are supporting these web standards, which is good, helps us out. The first big site to be able to do this was the Boston Globe. It just launched in the fall of this last year. The site is completely responsive. You take it and look at it on your iPad, you'll see how it works. You can even turn it in your iPad in portrait to landscape, and the layout will change. You look at it on your phone. You get the same experience. You get the same content, but it's just optimized for the different platforms that we have. So how does healthcare fit in on this? Well, I've worked with a lot of health insurance sites, and one of the biggest things that I found when we do user research with people dealing with health insurance, especially patients, is that they typically depend on their provider to give them information about their insurance, because health insurance is typically a complex product that people just don't understand. The information's not presented very well, and they just have a problem, so they rely on their provider to tell them, hey, this is how much it's going to cost me when I come in and have this done. Our idea was to let's make a site that simplifies the information about what they have to do, what they're going to pay for, and how much it's going to be. They can see it at home. Even when they're in front of their provider, the provider presents them with the bill, they can go and check and make sure that, hey, that's what I expected to pay. And we have that same experience across the different platforms. So I'm going to show you how that looks like. So here's the Health Insurance Corp, and this is a comp we did for a client. If we take the browser, and we can start collapsing it down, and maybe now we see the layout that it would look like on a tablet in portrait or landscape. As we shrink that down, the media queries will kick into these different screen size breakpoints and allow us to get to maybe a mobile size, and then the layout will change again, and now we have a mobile width. And so we have this information, tells them about their deductible. We have this much money left in their deductible, and after that, the provider pays 100%. So when the user sees this, they can see this is the same experience that they had when they were at their desktop on their phone. They don't have to learn a new interface. They don't have to look at it a different way. It's exactly the same presentation, interface. It looks very much the same. It's that same experience, just presented in a different way. So we find this a really effective way for, especially from your technical side, is to be able to maintain one set of code. We don't have to maintain a set of code for Android and BlackBerry and Windows Mobile and iOS. We can do it on the web when it makes sense to do it on the web in this way, that we can do it for one platform, the web, and just have different layouts for different sizes of screens. So we've also, at ICF, we've been working with AIDS.gov, and we put out a facing.aids.gov that we've done with a responsive design, and we're currently working on a responsive design for the entire AIDS.gov website. And if you talk to Jeremy Vanderlane, he's backed by the AIDS.gov poster in the background. He's been working on that and implementing that responsive design on that site. When we're thinking about responsive design, you have to think about it. We have to kind of it's not business as usual. We have to find ways to change the way we do our design process to make sure that this responsive design works. And the things we have to worry about is, what's the chicken or the egg? What comes first? The design, the technology, but it's really, I think you have to think about the mobile first. You know, we were talking about taking that big screen and shrinking it down to the bottom. It's kind of like if you're moving from a 3-bedroom townhouse fully furnished into a 1-bedroom apartment. Very difficult to get all that stuff in there. We were so used to putting all this content on this big screen, we can't really take that and just shrink it down and make it work. We have to really think about what is the most important thing that we need the user to see at this moment in time. So we really have to think about mobile first, and then also we have to think about the content first, because that's what really they're coming for, the content or the functionality. Make sure that we're emphasizing that. Don't put all the stuff that, everything and its brother on the screen. We really have to think about that experience. And also we have to think about things like progressive enhancements, so that we make sure that the content is accessible no matter what level of device somebody has. Somebody has a very simple device like a Kindle Fire, it doesn't have a camera, it doesn't have GPS. We can have that, still have access to the content experience and then we can progressively enhance for devices that have those extra capabilities. How do you know if your responsive design is right for your project? Well, that's something that you have to really think about. It's not right for everything. Sometimes it makes sense to have a native app. Sometimes it makes sense to have just a website. A lot of times it makes sense to have both. So it really takes a lot of the web strategy type of thinking, analyzing your very specific situation to see if responsive design is good for you. We think it's the trend, the future of web design itself. We think that it's going to be the way of the future, and it's something that we're doing right now. At ICF, we really think that responsive design is really going to be what web design is in the future. Thank you.